Hola a todos, hoy vamos a echar un vistazo a la A personal en español. So today we're going to talk about the personal A in Spanish. Now, you need to know that the letter A is a letter, but it can also be a word, right? And in this case, it will be a preposition. This has many different uses. And before we get into the personal A or A, let's look at some of the uses of the personal, of not the personal A, but the letter A, right? Or the word A. So we can use A as a preposition to indicate movement, right? Yo voy al supermercado. I'm going to the supermarket, right? A indicates direction. To. We can use a to introduce the specific person who is doing the liking when we're using verbs like gustar. For example, a mi madre le gusta cocinar. My mother likes to cook, or cooking is pleasing to my mother, right? So a introduces, let me let that truck pass. Right. A introduces the specific person, right? Le would refer to a mi madre, but a introduces the specific person, right? So those are two of the uses. Well, there are more, but this is just general. Those are some of the uses of the preposition a, right? So let's turn our attention to the personal a. Now, before we do that, there's always going to be a translation when we use a in Spanish, right? Because in English it would translate as to, etc. But in this context, there is no translation. Usually there is a translation, but this time no. So there's no equivalent in English. This personal a does not exist in English. So please do not look for any translations because you will not find one, right? So now let's look at the personal a. What is it? So the preposition a is used before persons when they are the direct object in a sentence. Yes. Now we need to know what a direct object does. Now a direct object refers to the person or thing that receives the action of the verb. Therefore, it responds to the question, who or what receives the action, right? For example, yo manejo el coche. I drive the car. What do I drive? El coche. Therefore, el coche is our direct object because it receives the action of the verb, in this case, which should be manejar, right? Now, if we have a person on the receiving end, we use a before that person. For example, veo a Rosa. I see Rosa. Who do I see? Rosa. Well, a Rosa. So we need the a before Rosa because Rosa is a person, right? That's right. La profesora ayuda a los alumnos. The teacher helps the students. A los alumnos who receive the assistant, who receives the assistance? Los alumnos, the students. So the students would be our direct object. Therefore, we need a, and students refer to persons. So you would see that it doesn't matter whether we name the person directly or we refer to them generally. Once we have a person as the direct object, we use a before that particular person or before those persons, right? And another thing, if we have more than one person, we need to use a before each of those persons, right? For example, veo a Rosa y a Susana. We need to place a before Susana as well, because Susana is a person, right? So I see Rosa and Susana. Veo a Rosa y a Susana. So just remember, if you have more than one person, the a must go before each of those individuals. For example here, la profesora ayuda a los alumnos y al director. The teacher helps the students and the principal. That's right. Yep. So if we have more than one person, the a goes before each person, right? Good. So we already know that the personal a is used before persons when they are the direct object in a sentence. But of course, there are more uses. The personal a is used with pets. So this indicates a special relationship. We're not just referring to any animal, we're referring to pets. Animals that can be domesticated, right? Debo alimentar a mi perro. I must feed my dog, right? So this dog belongs to you, right? This is not any dog, this is a pet, so we use a. Puedes describir a tu gato. Can you describe your cat? Now, if we were talking about any animal, we would not use the personal a. For example, yo vi una vaca. I saw a cow. We wouldn't say yo vi a una vaca. No. Yo vi una vaca. We're just talking about any animal. The only time we use the personal a when it comes to animals is when we're talking about pets. Right? Muy bien. The personal a is used with personified nouns. Personification refers to a figure of speech in which things that are inanimate are given human qualities. Okay? So the same thing applies. If we have a noun and we humanize it, in other words, we attribute human qualities to this noun, then we have a personified noun, a noun that can be seen as a person or a human, right? If we look at words like our nouns like mundo, world, the world is comprised of cities, land, etc. But we can look at the world as a place which consists of many different people. So in that sense, we can see it as a person, right? So we humanize it. Therefore, we can use the personal a with it. Sometimes you may see examples of this without the personal a, but if you're personifying it, we can use the personal a. So it's not wrong to use the personal a here, because you see the world as a human, or as humans, right? El dinero cambió al mundo. Money changed the world. We had examples of this earlier, but when we have a and el, they combine to form a contraction and it becomes al, not a-el, but al, right? Same thing here. Quiero ayudar al país. I want to help the country. We can look at the country as a place, or we can look at the country as a collection of people. So if we use the latter, then we are personifying this particular noun, right? Therefore, we use the personal a. And any noun which can refer to persons, whether directly or indirectly, we use the personal a with those nouns. For example, grupo, a group, right? El comité, committee, right? So once we're talking about persons, we use the personal a. That's right. The personal a is used with indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns refer to words that are used to talk about persons, but indefinitely. So words that are not going to be specific. They refer to people, but they are not referring to specific persons. But because they're referring to persons, we use the personal a. For example, no vi a nadie. I did not see anyone. Nadie, of course, refers to no one, but we have to say anyone because of the double negative, right? I did not see anyone. That does not refer to anyone specific, but it refers to a person, or it refers to persons. So we use the personal a there, right? Ella ve a todo el mundo. Todo el mundo refers to everyone. We're not referring to anyone specific, but we are referring to people. So we use the personal a, okay? More examples could be alguien. Right. So any indefinite pronoun, if we're using an indefinite pronoun as a direct object, then we need the personal a. Right? Muy bien. The personal a is used before question words. Okay? So, ¿a quién pertenece este coche? To whom does this car belong? Right. ¿A quién? We can't say quién. Quién would be who. But because we are asking to whom, right? To whom does this car belong? In this case, the a has a meaning. The a would mean to, right? We could respond by saying, este coche pertenece a Juan. This car belongs to Juan, right? So we use it with questions when we are ascertaining particular information or certain information regarding a person, right? Remember, person is still involved, right? ¿A cuántas amigas invitaste a tu casa? How many friends did you invite to your house? Of course, amigas in this case would be feminine, so we're talking about female friends. ¿A cuántas amigas? We can't say cuántas amigas invitaste, right? Because again, amigas is the direct object, right? Who did you invite? Or rather, whom did you invite? Right? Whom did you invite? So we use the "a" there at the beginning of the question because the friends would be the direct object, right? A potential response, yo invité a 10 amigas, por ejemplo, right? So as you see, the personal a is used in many different contexts, okay? But of course, there are some exceptions, right? We do not use the personal a with verbs such as haber and tener. So let me explain. When it comes to haber, we do not use it, right? And we know that we use haber to talk about existence. So if I want to say, hay una persona, there is a person. Hay dos chicas, there are two girls. We don't say hay a dos chicas. No. So we don't use the personal a after verbs such as haber. We usually don't use it with tener, but there are some exceptions too. If we're talking about what we have, given that tener means to have, we don't use it. So if I say tengo dos hermanas, I have two sisters, I do not use the personal a to talk about what I have. But if we're talking about having someone in a particular position or state, we use tener. For example, we use a, sorry. Therefore, for example, I can say, tengo a mi hermano como jefe. I have my brother as the boss. Right? So that's a position I have him in. I could even refer to physically holding someone. Tengo a mi hijo en las manos. I have my son in my arms. Right? So we only use the personal a with tener if we're talking about having someone in a particular position or state. But if we're talking about what we have, we do not use the personal a. Okay? Another point to note, there are going to be certain verbs that you're going to see even though a person is a direct object with these verbs, sometimes you're going to see that the personal a is omitted, right? So verbs like buscar and necesitar, those verbs, it is optional. I shouldn't say optional, but in this particular case, if we are referring to someone specific, we use the personal a. But if we are not referring to someone specific, we do not. For example, if I say, estamos buscando un profesor, we are looking for a teacher. We don't use the personal a there because we can be talking about the particular position, a teacher, and we could be referring to anyone. We can be referring to a teacher as a concept, or we could be referring to referring to someone generally. Therefore, we don't use the personal a. Estamos buscando un profesor. But if I say, estamos buscando a mi profesor, then I need to use a because mi profesor is someone specific, right? So we are looking for my teacher. This is someone that you know, right? Another example, ella busca busca alguien que sepa español. She is looking for someone that knows Spanish. Ella busca alguien que sepa español. You're not referring to someone specific, so you don't need the personal a there. You don't even know if that person exists. And this is also where you use the subjunctive at the end, sepa. Ella busca alguien que sepa español. So that's an exception to the rule. Then we use certain verbs, like necesitar and buscar, right? It's going to come down to whether the individual is specific or not, right? Bueno, creo que eso es todo por hoy. Espero que les haya quedado claro. Muchas gracias por ver este video y hasta pronto.